Like many people, you're probably wondering, if AI is so good, how can you get it to build software that's better than the apps you're already using day to day? And this is a question I asked myself, and I set myself the challenge of building a replacement for Apple Photos, which was an app that I was using every day and kind of felt it was majorly lacking. It didn't have any culling tools, and it was kind of preventing me from actually curating a photo library, which is what that app should do first and foremost. So I actually built a replacement for Photos using AI. I didn't write one line of code. It's absolutely incredible. It's by far the best bit of photo library management software because of what it means to me. It is built for my requirements, and that is why it is so amazing. And in this video, what I'm going to do is start from scratch and show you in real time how I built this using Claude Code. I'm going to run through basically starting from an empty folder through to a fully functioning app that's using all the same kind of mechanisms as the one I've already built. Now, the one I already built is now far too powerful just to fit into one video as a quick walkthrough. It's definitely more than 1 hour's worth of time spent on that. So what I'm going to do is just make a kind of light version that it will be enough to show you everything that you need to understand this process in full and get you to the point where after that it is just only limited by your imagination. We're going to use Claude Code for this. This is still the best as far as I can tell. I've tested ChatGPT 5 and so on for dealing with code, but Claude Code still seems to be the best. It's the best at generating really good, well-designed visual interfaces in HTML as well. It seems to be very good at that. Okay, so to get started, if you've never used this before, you're going to need a Claude account. So either a Claude Pro or a Claude Max account. They do a free version, but you're probably not going to get a lot done with that. So Claude Code is included in the normal subscription plans now, so you don't need to use the console version with the API usage. That gets really expensive if you do that as well. So it's much better to use the kind of, they just deal with a normal kind of throttling. Like if they see you using it 24 hours a day, obviously they're going to shut you down. But they sort of have this kind of rolling 5-hour window of usage, and it's pretty generous. You can get a lot done. So grab yourself a Claude subscription, and from there you then need to install Claude Code on your machine. So you just follow these steps. It's just a command line interface. Obviously, we're going to be doing everything over the command line here. You need Node installed before you can install Claude Code, so you can just follow these steps, and that is linked from this page as well, just in there. So it's super easy. Just literally follow those steps, and then this one-liner will get you the Claude Code CLI command line interface up and running on your machine. So I've navigated to a folder here. In this folder we have got just one more folder, and that is full of my photos. So we can see this, I'm just working inside this folder. So I've just used CD, put it into this folder. So I'm not going to go into the folder that contains the photos. I'm going to stay in the one just above it so that we can make the application look at that folder as its main source of the photos. So we're going to go through how I've set up this photo library tool. Hopefully that will cover enough sort of scenarios that you can see how you can apply this kind of process to building all kinds of really amazing everyday apps, basically. So what we first need to kind of do is obviously open the Claude command line interface. So that is just as simple as typing Claude, and then we will be in Claude in that folder. So it sort of understands that you're working in that folder. Now, at the moment, there's nothing at all in here. So we know that I've just shown you everything inside this folder. So we are truly starting from scratch here. So the first kind of initial prompt for this is just to get Claude up and running, start thinking about how it's going to build this. And you can ask it to give you a plan of what it intends to do so you can check that over. So this is where probably the main architecture understanding of how you want to set this up works. But of course, I've covered all of this in these videos. So this kind of concept you can just copy. You just literally sort of paraphrase what I'm talking about and it will understand. So I'm going to record this first prompt now. This is literally the first prompt in this project. So we're going from an empty folder just containing a folder of images to this initial version of how we're going to have the application up and running. So I'm going to be describing the overall architecture, how I see it coming together, and we'll see what it comes up with. Okay, so we want to build a photo library tool in this folder, and it's going to work using HTML and JavaScript as a front end, and then it's going to use Python servers as the back end. So we're going to need to set up a Python API backend server, and we're going to use SQLite databases to deal with all of the database stuff that the Python server can interact with. So first of all, we're going to need to create an index of all the images in our master folder so that we can do things like look up images by metadata and create galleries based on that metadata, and just generally sort of have a solid index of all of the images in our master folder. And the idea is whenever we're working with this, we're going to be able to create galleries, and those galleries will be folders containing hard links back to the original files in the master. So we have this idea of a portable gallery that uses the file system first and foremost as well. Inside the HTML viewer, the kind of tools that we want in our photo library are obviously a nice grid mode where we index everything. So we're going to need thumbnail generation. So we're going to need an initial kind of function, Python script that we can run to import our images into the database, and that will then generate thumbnails as well. And those thumbnails are going to be sized appropriately for Retina screen display in our grid mode in the interface. So obviously we're going to want a preloading system and a caching system as well to make sure the HTML interface performs really well. So it will load all of those thumbnails. They'll be small so they can load first, obviously. And then we want a full-size display for an image. So this is obviously then going to reference that hard link file after we've created a gallery. And it's going to want to preload those so that we can then advance the interface just with the left and right arrow keys to scroll through next and previous images, and they will load straight away into the browser. And what we're going to need to do there is utilize DOM elements so that we can have those actually loaded in the DOM to create a really instant switch when we advance through those images. So 2 or 3 images either side of our current one will be preloaded in DOM elements, and they will just be toggled as we switch through. So in addition to that, we're going to need culling and deleting tools. So we're going to need a backend server that references a JSON file, which will be a list of files marked for deletion. That will then delete those files from the hard link gallery, and also it will move the originals to the trash as well. So the idea being that we're going to use this tool for extensive culling and deleting and curating of our library. So we're going to need the sort of keyboard shortcut like X to just mark an image as deleted, and that can operate either in full screen mode or the grid mode as we work with the selected images. And then we're going to want a culling tool, and this is going to be where you select a batch of images and then enter the culling tool, and then you can flick through left and right, choose the initial one as your pick. When you're in pick mode, there'll be a side-by-side view where you have the pick on the left and the other candidates on the right, and advancing through that collection of images will show the other one on the right. Then we can use something like a P keyboard shortcut to mark the one that we would prefer to be the pick for that, and then when we finalize that mode, all the others will be marked for deletion using that JSON file. So we're going to need this API endpoint that deals with all of this on the back end, works with JSON files and other Python scripts to get all this up and running. So can you propose a plan for how you see this coming together, and we'll go from there. All right, that was my first prompt. Tried to fill it in with as much idea of what I want from this, how it's going to work in terms of the real architecture of this application. So let's go back and we'll hopefully see our voice server pop that text into here. So whenever we're just waiting for something like my voice server to convert the text into here, I'll just cut that out. So if you do see chops in this, that's all we're doing. There's nothing, I'll never cut anything out that involves any prompt work basically. So just the cuts will only be just to speed this up when we're waiting for the system to do something. Okay, so that's pasted there now because it's such a lot of text. It's just showing us pasted text there, and we can enter that and see what happens. So you can see it's coming straight back. It's already got a pretty solid understanding of what we want. So we'll see how things look from here. While that's doing that in that window, I'm just going to make a new window that we can open NVim in there, and we can actually just see exactly what it's going to do. So it's not done anything yet. We're ready in NVim to have a look at the code. All right, so we've got a proposal here. So let's have a look. So we've got this proposed architecture. Let's just have a glance down here. So this is important. This is an important part of this. Don't just blindly accept it. There will be times where it goes off on a tangent, makes stuff up, and comes up with silly ideas. So it's important to review what it proposes here, and always ask it to propose plans that you can review before you get it to execute on stuff. So I'm just having a look over this. This looks good. Yeah. These kinds of things, obviously, the more, like it always comes back to, the more understanding you have of these kind of basic command line interface processes, the better you're going to understand what it's proposing. But at the end of the day, we aren't working with AI. So if you don't understand something, you can just ask it to explain it. So you can kind of help each other. And that's the important thing, is it needs guidance, but it also can help you get the knowledge you need to give it the guidance that it needs. And that's a kind of important part of working with AI, I think. Okay, so it's looking at the file structure now, so we're going to see what this looks like. Okay, so it's proposed this master folder. That's the one that it's already in there. It's not called that, but hopefully it'll figure that out. It's proposing we make 3 new folders here. And in fact, I'm just going to it's talking about this photo library folder that doesn't exist. So I just want to make sure it understands that it's going to create this inside this folder, and the existing folder is what it is proposing as the master one. Can we just check that when you talk about a master folder, that is the folder you can currently see in the folder we're working in now. So you can go ahead and create your 3 folders adjacent to that one. So we can see my text prompted into there nicely, and we can and fire that away. So it's looking in the folder now. So when you see it do this, it's running these commands. So it's running a ls command to see, so it can see what's in this folder. So it understands exactly that the folder is in there. That's what we're talking about, this master folder. So it's going to go ahead and make these 3 folders. So this is where it's proposing what it's going to do next. It's important again to review this, and an understanding of these kind of basic command line commands that it's going to run for you go a long way. So understanding that this make directory folder is what it's going to run, and understand what it's going to do. So the P flag means it's going to make them if they don't exist, basically, and it's going to do all 3. I'm happy with that. Let's say just hit enter on that, and it does it. So again, I think the great way of thinking about this is that it saves you the typing. You do still need to be prescriptive. You do still need to be the architect. It's just saving you the typing, and it's going to make something as good as you want it to make, and that's the key. It's not taking over your job. It's not doing the work for you. It's just saving you the typing. It knows the syntax. It knows everything. It'll generate good code if you tell it what it is that you want it to do. So it's carrying on making more folders now, so we're happy with that. We can just hit enter on that. So the master folder reference in our system will be master photo library. That's fine, that's great. So it's created these folders, so it's going to now carry on with its plan. Yep, we can just type that. Okay, so it's going to just put all of the requirements for the dependencies for the scripts into a text file here, so that sounds fine. Just going to let it do that. Now I have my actual real photo tool, which is obviously way too big to have done in this video, but that's actually already running on existing ports, so I'm just going to be careful that it changes to different ports so that I can demonstrate this while the other one is still running. So I'm just going to do down arrow keys to no, hit enter on that, and then I'm just going to speak the prompt. I actually have some other software already running on ports 8000 to 8003, so can we just start at 8010? That's fine. So my voice server got that a little bit wrong, but Claude has understood it and it's changed the port to 8010 there, so that's fine. The job is done. So it gives you these little kind of things that says what it's doing. So we knew it was trying to create this backend, so we can scroll up and see what that code looks like. Clearly, just the speed implication of how quickly it wrote this code for me compared to manually typing. It's created all the create table commands to create the tables in this database. SQLite databases are fantastic for this. They're just a single file. There's nothing running that it's just, it runs when you run the commands on it. It's perfect for this kind of a setup where you have everything just in a file system folder, and you can create these powerful applications right there within your file system that just run over these scripts. So I'm just going to glance over the kind of columns that it's putting in to the tables just to make sure it's got everything that I need. So actually, interestingly, it's using the idea of galleries in the database. And this is something I didn't do in my version. I actually just relied on the file system for my definition of a gallery, and I had the JSON file inside that, and I didn't have a duplication of that. It doesn't. You could go down that road. I'm going to say no. I'm going to tell it to change tack and follow what I've already done, because I know that works well and it has a lot of benefits. We don't actually need to store the definitions of galleries within the database because we're using these folders in our hard link folder gallery system. We can simply reference those hard links as the source of truth for where these galleries exist. Each gallery folder can have its own JSON config file inside. It just makes things nice and portable, so we can change the database to not need any definitions for galleries. So you can see actually just how good, I know there was a small mistake earlier, but how good the Whisper model running locally on a 2016 MacBook Pro and how fast it is. to do really good text-to-speech here for this kind of thing as well. All right, so we're just going to have a quick glance at its alternate version here. Should be simpler, so it's just literally creating a single table now for images, which is exactly what we want. And that table contains columns for all of the different metadata. That looks great. Let's go with that. The key thing is it's so fast at working with this stuff that if there are issues at this point, it's very easy for it to change. Like it will just find it and change it. So it's getting something you can see and be tangible as fast as possible and then iterating with it. Don't overthink these early stages, just let it come up with something and then you can refine it later. So just glancing over everything that it's doing now. So this is the Python script that it's going to generate to deal with galleries. So it's going to loop through the images that it finds and hopefully create a folder using hard links. That looks roughly right. I'm just going to see what happens at that point. I think as long as it looks roughly right at first glance, don't waste too much time scrutinizing what it does. You can see the kind of gist of the code, just a loose understanding of the code. I'm not a Python expert, but you can see the logic. It writes this code so nicely and easily to read. So it's easy just to get to that stage where you can kind of see what it wants to do with the code and approve it or tell it to change it. So we've got some culling endpoints by the looks of it here. Oh yeah, so actually that previous script wasn't the direct API endpoint. This is the one that's listening for the API commands from the JavaScript. So we can kind of see the endpoints that it's defining. So we can sort of get images, yes, data for that. Get a list of galleries, okay, so it's going to look at the folders to generate that, that's fine. Culling functions, yep, so it's kind of got the gist of what we want, so we can just hit yes on that. If we jump back into our yeah, we can see this is actually taking shape now. So it's already made all of these. Those are the folders it's made. We've got an empty front-end folder, which hopefully we'll get to in a minute. And you can see these Python scripts that it's already put in here. We've got the config file, database, gallery manager, just all really nice code. Import images, so this is the import script where it's going to scan the folder of images and convert that into the database. So once you've done that big initial prompt, it gets smaller. Your prompts get smaller. It's a lot more about sort of looking at what it's proposing, correcting it, steering it, and going from there. So hopefully you can see from this demonstration how much of this comes from an understanding of software and how much comes. I'll try and keep like the language I'm using to be more layman's language. I'm not trying to, and if something requires that prior knowledge, I'll try and demonstrate getting Claude to fill in that gap as if I didn't already know it, kind of thing. So we're onto the HTML file now. Obviously, prior knowledge here, HTML files are your front-end interface. So understanding this kind of thing is obviously pretty important, but you could learn this in half a day with a session with AI, just ask for help understanding about HTML front-end JavaScript and how Python backends can work with that. Just get a summary of that, Looks fine. I don't know until we see it in the browser what that's going to look like. We'll go from there. So it's come back with the proposed CSS file. So CSS file is basically what governs the way the HTML elements look in the browser. You can get an idea of just how much code has already been generated. So now we've got some front-end code. There's the CSS. It's all clearly necessary. None of this is like redundant. This is all efficient, lean code. It looks good. It's readable. It's commented. Yeah, it would take, to write that by hand, we would be hours into this. So it's very impressive, and I think I know there's a lot of skepticism and a lot of cynicism towards this whole vibe coding thing. It's only going to get better. If you genuinely have a problem with the code that it's writing, it's going to get better. That argument will just be faded into oblivion by the standards. In reality, it's good enough for what it does. Like, this is a tool for personal use that I built in my spare time, the version I actually use, that's obviously a lot more powerful than what I'm going to do here. But it's still a personal time project for personal use. I don't really care if it's not the very best efficient code. It doesn't need to be edited by anyone else. I'm only going to work with this with Claude. It can figure out any change I request of it. It has no problem understanding its own code. But that is actually a really important point, because it is extremely human-friendly code as well. I think there's it's clearly designed to make human understandable code. It's not like it's just generated something that only it can understand. I think that's quite an important thing to understand about this as well. Okay, so the next file is a JavaScript file. This is going to handle the interactive parts of this tool in the browser and post commands back to that API backend Python script. I'm just going to get it to the point where we can see what it looks like in a browser at this stage. From everything that's happened so far, I'm pretty confident it understands the basic requirements of what we're asking of it. So I'm not going to go overboard in proofing everything it does at this point. So we've got some sort of initial setup script. It seems fine. So this is the other great thing about AI. It generates these amazing README files that just documents everything in the system. So it's fantastic for that kind of thing. You'll notice I'm using the Navigator by ZSA here. This is really cool. It's fantastic if you're using this on a desk. There are a couple of issues I had with it. If I'm using it in my really extreme tented, the ball will fall out in anything more than a small tent, or at least you end up with this point where it kind of wobbles like that. But in a desk environment, it's fantastic. I love the idea that you can use the keyboard for your click events, and then this just for scrolling. That's really cool. All right, so it's finished and come back with a summary of what it's done. So, okay, so it's running on that. So we've got this main, okay, so I'm just going to say start the server. And then we're going to go to 8010. So because it's said to go to localhost, obviously we know this is our Mac upstairs, so it's not localhost. This is actually 192.168.1.155, and then we're going to do 8010 as the port. So nothing's running yet. All right, so it hasn't run the command yet. So we're going to start this with Python. Okay, so this is typical of this kind of a process. So it's found dependencies that it's using dependencies that don't exist on my system. So it's now using the pip command to install the requirements in the .txt file. Now I actually tend to use Mac ports on this Mac, so I might need to deviate a little bit from the way these dependencies are installed, but we'll see how it gets on. Okay, so it says it's running. So if we hit refresh on this, nope. 8010, yeah, it's still right. So it says it's running. I think this is just an issue to do with the fact that I'm accessing this over the local IP address. So I'm just going to tell it to make sure it will run on the machine's local network IP address. I'm not seeing this when I access the server from another machine on my network using the machine's local IP address. Can we make sure it runs on that, please? Funny you find yourself using these human phrases when you do this, please, it's a pleasantry that is lost on AI, but it's so natural to talk like this. So okay, so we can see it's doing that. Okay, so it's made a little change there to the host 000. I'm not quite sure that's going to work, but let's just see. I think that isn't going to work either. Oh, it has. Okay. Great. So that's obviously 000 maps to the local machine's IP address. So that's cool. We're definitely missing some styling. We've got a long way to go here. So let's go back. So it just wants to, so it's just double checking this IP address business. Yeah. So it's happy. So let's go on with the styling issue. I'm not seeing any styling at all. Just looks like HTML output with no style. The CSS styles file is not found. So it's doing some tests now. You can see it's agreeing that these are showing as 404 not founds. It's proposing a solution. You can see it's mapping these. Okay, now it's restarting the server, so it's just going to kill that process and start it again. Okay, so this is looking pretty cool. Obviously, at this point, it's wildly different to the one I've created. So I could tune this and say, you know, let's change tags. But in the interest of just keeping this at a video to demonstrate how you can make functional software using AI very quickly, I'm going to just kind of, you know, let it run with it to some extent. So let's just, I'm not quite sure what it's proposing we do for creating a gallery here. Let's just say, how do I create a gallery of all images this year? Okay, so we do need to run this initial import. So it's going to now do that for me. So let's see what happens there. Okay, so we can see the output from that script. It is actually scanning our master folder, which is great. All right, so it says, it still thinks it needs to fix something on the HTML. I'll just let it do that and see what happens. I think this is just for the mapping for the files themselves. I'm just going to scroll up and read what it said here. So it says it's imported the 86 images to the library from that folder, which is brilliant. They're all from 2025 anyway. So I can create a gallery of 25 images through the web interface. So I go there, I click select all. Oh, okay. Let's just refresh and see what it looks like. I think it just killed it, and it was waiting for me to confirm the starting again, so that's fine. Obviously, when it changes these scripts, you need to restart the server to get it to pick that up. Okay, so it's not working now at all. It doesn't seem to be loading now at all. This is quite a typical process, you know, stuff goes wrong and you have to kind of diagnose it, and it's back and forth, just messing about really. Directory issue. Okay, so it just figured it out. That is it gonna, what is all this? It's gone into the wrong folder, I think, so it's just working out where it is. We'll just let it do that. I think that's okay. Let's just see if it's running now. Yep, there we go. So we're not seeing any images. Let's just double check if it wanted a gallery before. It probably does. Should we be seeing any images before we create a gallery, or do we need to create a gallery first? Ah, okay, so it is saying that the initial index should be there. So I'm just letting it figure this out. See why we're not seeing any images. It thinks it's designed something that is supposed to show us the grid of all the images before we even start. My tool doesn't actually do that. It only shows the galleries, but obviously that I could just tell it to change that behavior. So it seems to be happy that it's all working. Yep, that's all loading. Problem is JavaScript isn't executing properly. Okay, ability to JavaScript should automatically. Right. So okay. So it's saying there's likely a JavaScript error. So let's just use the web inspector again and see if we can see what's going on. We can see these. Okay, so it's a cause issue. I'm just going to copy that and hopefully it can fix that. Okay, so it's, yeah, the issue is because I'm using the local IP address when I view the page, but it's just defaulting to localhost, so it's clearly not going to work because it isn't this. So it's just making this one-liner change. You can see it's just literally changing the hard-coded localhost references to a dynamic one, which should use this whatever IP address I'm accessing it on. All right, let's see. Yes, cool. Excellent. Okay, so we've got some EXIF rotation issues here, which is interesting. Okay, so there's a couple of issues that we can see here clearly. It's rotating, it's not showing the images in the right orientation. And let's just see. Oh yeah, so it has actually generated a thumbnail. So it's the thumbnail generation that's gone wrong. So we can see this is using a small version. It's clearly not the original JPEG, and it's using a thumbnails folder. So I think it's already done the whole thumbnail generation thing, and it's just not using the rotation properly. So we're just going to go back and say, our thumbnails are not in the right orientation. Do we need to check the EXIF rotation data and generate them in the right orientation. So obviously, a small bit of kind of prior understanding knowledge that the data for images is called the EXIF data, but it would have figured that out if I didn't use that word. So it's whacked in a load of code there that's going to look at the EXIF orientation and then hopefully create the thumbnails. It's going to rerun that script. It's just deleting all of the thumbnails. You will be careful quickly approving RM commands. If you ever see RF, you need to be really careful because that is running a system delete command that doesn't go to the trash. It's just gone. So be very careful with that. So it's rerunning that initial import script now after deleting the first batch of thumbnails. So you can see what we've kind of done here is get to the point where it's showing us something in the browser. We can see the decisions it's made to get to that point. I think it's easier to work with this way because it's so quick at iterating and changing. It's not worth trying to have predicted all that by looking at the code first. Just let it do what it wants first and then work out where it's gone wrong and fix it. Okay, so it says to refresh. Let's do that. Yay! So all the thumbnails are now the right way up. So that was a great example of sort of where it made a mistake, but we just fixed it by looking at the output. This is actually a pretty good. What's striking about this is how good this interface looks. I've given it no detail about the design of the interface at this stage, and it's just come out great. This is a proper CSS grid system with a nice little hover effect and all the rest of it. It's just looking great. So one obvious issue is that the image is not in date order. So let's just fix that. The images are not showing in date order. I don't think we need to do anything more than that. Let's just see what it comes up with that. You get a lot of this, you're right, it makes you feel like a good little operator. So it's just using the wrong column name or something there. We can just see it's having another crack at that. Or didn't include the right column name. So let's see, that's still wrong. Let's just get rid of that one. Still wrong. Do we need to rerun the script? Okay, so it wants to restart the server. I'm not sure that's necessary. It didn't actually change the server file. So there may be another issue here. So often this will happen, it thinks it's fixed something and it doesn't. It's like, it's done. Okay, so the order has definitely changed, but I'm not convinced this is actually date order. I don't think it is. The order's changed, but I don't think it actually reflects the date that the pictures themselves were taken. Are we using the date extracted from the EXIF data? So it's using something to change the order, but I don't think it's not pulling the actual time the picture was taken to use as that. So I've just told it that, and we'll see if it can fix that. So it's just doing a few checks to verify this. It was using the date time from the EXIF data. So it should be right. Okay, let's just double check this. No, these were just different events completely, so there's no way this is actually the correct order. I mean, these, yeah, there's a dog picture there. This was the same day, and these were completely different days. So something is not right. Something is still not right. The images are definitely not in the order that I took them in. Okay, it's getting a bit confused, I think. I think it's a date. Oh, no, actually, no, 1st of September. It's not in the future, but let's just see what it's proposing here. So it's actually just deleting the whole database and the thumbnails and rerunning the import script. So it's just running a few commands on the database to see the kind of data. So that those do look like correct dates. Yep, that's it. Okay, so yeah, just a little bit of sort of back and forth and convincing it of things there. And now that's definitely in the right order. Great, okay, so we've got making some good progress here. So clicking the image is not showing us the full-sized one. So we're going to tune this a little bit now. Clicking the image is not showing us the full-size image. I guess we need to be clear on whether an image is part of a hard link gallery or whether we're just going to reference it from the master folder. can you make sure that if we're looking at the normal grid mode, which is just referencing the originals, that we obviously load that, but we need to accommodate using our gallery system as well. Oh dear, I'm running out of power, and the single port on the Mac is going to scupper me, I think. So we've probably got 5 minutes to wrap this up. Hopefully, actually, what we've done so far is probably enough to show you how this works. You know, it's demonstrated a couple of the points as to how to use this to make it work. You know, looking at errors, how to deal with errors, having confidence that it is actually very good at fixing its own mistakes, and just sort of how that basic approach to setting these kinds of apps up works. We'll just get this hopefully bug fixed, and then we can see how we get to. So what's going on now is just updating the files, and you see these sort of green and red diffs for all of the changes it's going to make. So it's kind of just glancing over them, hitting enter to accept. Let's just see. So I'm just going to look in the inspector and see why we're not getting any big images here at this point. There's just nothing there, isn't there? I'm not seeing any big images when I click the thumbnails. It doesn't seem to be anything in the HTML to show them at all. While it's just thinking about that, I'm just going to see if I can spot anything else. Oh, that's interesting. So full view is actually there, but it's hidden. It might be as simple as that. Yeah, it's added an important tag to this one, which is clearly overriding its own active. So we can just say, copy that. So it's trying to diagnose it by putting some console logging. So I'm just going to say it's a CSS issue and paste it that. It will figure it out from that. Yay, there we go. Okay, so we can see we've built a little photo gallery. It clearly hasn't done the adjacent preloading stuff yet, but that's just a question of just carrying on really with the process. And you can see it's got this back to grid. I've set that to queue in my app. That's really instinctive for me now. But basically this is working fine. So it's an initial run, and you can kind of see how it's got the grounds for the culling stuff, which we can obviously just carry on. Let's just see how far it got along that. By going, so if we do a selection, so this is kind of generated a different interface to my version, obviously. Is a bug, it's not even letting me select, but obviously clearly you've got the tick box items there. So you just tell it that I can't click the tick boxes, and it will obviously carry on in that process that we've demonstrated in this video. But this is it, you just carry on doing that, and you end up with what I've actually built, which is my photo tool. I haven't done anything different from that. It's just literally the same process of just iterating, testing, getting it to do something, looking for where it's gone wrong and tuning it. And you know, you can create amazing software exactly the way you want it to work, which is just fantastic. So I've done a bunch of other videos in this series looking in more detail at the actual photo tool that I built, which is, you know, super powerful. Those scripts are also available to master level members of this channel. Many thanks to everyone who's come on board. Amazing to see so many of you coming on board. So do take a look at the scripts in there if you're a member, and I'll see you in the next video.